Our understanding of the beginning of humanity has changed over time. According to the creation stories of Judaism and Christianity, Adam and Eve are considered to be the first man and woman ever to exist on planet Earth. Yet, modern secular discussions suggest that the first ever Homo sapiens emerged in Africa approximately 315,000 years ago. These earliest Homo sapiens did not arise suddenly in a single location. Rather, current evidence suggests that they evolved from earlier human ancestors across multiple regions in Africa. This took place through early human populations that mixed and separated over long periods of time. Nevertheless, the oldest confirmed fossils come from Jebel Irhoud in Morocco, dating to around 315,000 years ago. The site was first discovered in 1961 during a mining operation when some workers uncovered a human skull. What makes this discovery so fascinating is its combination of modern and archaic facial features. For example, the brain case of the skull is long and slender rather than rounded, which are typical qualities of Neanderthal skulls. Neanderthals were an extinct species of archaic human that lived in planet Earth from about 400,000 to 40,000 years ago, and they share a common ancestor with human beings. You might be wondering how we know that this skull is evidence for the existence of human beings. Well, our knowledge of early humans comes from multiple lines of evidence that help us understand Homo sapiens in their entirety. The first bit of evidence is fossil evidence. Skeletal remains provide direct evidence of early Homo sapiens. These fossils show distinctive bodily features, including a modern human-shaped skull, a flat and retracted face, a chin, and also a narrow pelvis. Researchers can distinguish these modern human traits from those of earlier human ancestors like Homo erectus and also Neanderthals. While Homo erectus and Homo sapiens have distinct physical features, these categories are socially constructed. Nevertheless, these remains help us determine when the first Homo sapiens were wandering around planet Earth. Scientists also use DNA from modern populations that point to an African origin approximately 300,000 years ago. The genetic diversity is the highest among African populations, and it is consistent with Africa being humanity's homeland. Archaeological evidence like stone tools and animal bones found alongside early human fossils help establish the timeline of the behavior of our ancestors. Middle-aged stone tools found at sites like Jebel Irhoud date to the same period as the earliest fossils and demonstrate that our early Homo sapiens had technological capabilities. Once again, we might find new forms of evidence in the future that we've never seen before, and it may also challenge our understanding of the origins of humanity. Perhaps the most profound implication of the Jebel Irhoud discovery is what it reveals about the scope of human evolution. For decades, the most dominant narrative placed human origins in East Africa roughly 200,000 years ago. This was based on existing evidence, like fossils from Homo Kabish in Ethiopia. However, the Jebel Irhoud findings paint a very different picture. Rather than arising in a single location, Homo sapiens appeared to have evolved across the entire African continent. Believe it or not, but North Africa now emerges as a crucial region in our understanding of man's evolution. There are similarities between Jebel Irhoud's stone tools and those from contemporary sites in East Africa, which suggest that there was widespread technological use and possibly even population connectivity across Africa. You might be wondering, well, what exactly did these early Homo sapiens do? It is likely that they lived as hunter-gatherers and engaged in a range of survival activities. The earliest Homo sapiens at Jebel Irhoud were skilled hunters who relied heavily on meat as a primary food source. The animal remains found at the site reveal a diet focused on larger animals, including gazelles, hartebeests, wildebeests, zebras, buffalo, and also wild boar. They also ate smaller prey, including porcupines, hares, tortoises, ostrich eggs, and also snakes. At the site, gazelle bones dominate, with many showing evidence of human butchery through cut marks and intentional bone breaking. This may indicate that the people of Jebel Irhoud would rather hunt than scavenge for food. The discovery of bones, stone tools, and fire suggests that this group brought their kills back to their living site for processing and also consumption. The inhabitants of Jebel Irhoud use the Levallois technique for manufacturing stone tools. This represents one of the earliest known users of this advanced method. This technique involved a complex process where early tool makers would pick a good rock and trim around the edges to give it a curved, tortoised shell shape. Secondly, they would prepare one edge of the rock as the quote-unquote hitting spot where they would strike later. And finally, when the shape was right, they gave one strong hit at the platform and a big, thin, sharp flake would pop off it, and therefore we could use this as a tool. Another defining characteristic of daily life at Jebel Irhoud was the controlled use of fire. Evidence shows that stone tools had been scattered around and heated by different campfires. The fact that tools were burned after being discarded indicates that there was a repeated fire use at the site. Fire would have served multiple functions for these people. This includes cooking meats and other foods, making them more safer and digestible. It would have provided warmth during cooler periods, would have offered protection from predators, and also created light for nighttime activities. When it came to geography, the Jebel Irhoud humans inhabited a cave or rock environment, which back then was much greener and a wetter part of the Sahara region, approximately 300,000 years ago. This landscape was characterized by steppe-like grasslands, seasonal water sources, abundant grazing animals, and also various predators, including leopards, lions, and hyenas. Evidence from comparative studies of recent hunter-gatherers suggests that Jebel Irhoud humans lived in small, mobile bands of approximately 25 to 50 people. These groups likely existed of extended family units, with many members being related by blood or by marriage, egalitarian social structures with minimal hierarchy, shared responsibilities for survival, and also communal childbearing practices with multiple caregivers. There are fossil remains from the site that represent at least 5 individuals, including 3 young adults, a teenager, and a child, which tells us that at this time there was a multi-generational group of people alive. All members of these societies would have participated in essential survival activities. Interestingly enough, this challenges the assumption that there were strict gender-based jobs and responsibilities during this early time. A typical day for Jebel Irhoud inhabitants would have revolved around essential survival tasks. In the morning, the inhabitants would have scouted and tracked animals across grasslands and also coordinated the hunting of gazelles using stone-tipped spears or javelins. Moreover, they would have gathered seasonal plant foods, including roots, nuts, and ostrich eggs, and maintained some of their stone tools for harvesting. In the evening, the people of Jebel Irhoud would have returned to their cave shelter with animals, butchered these animals using their stone tools, lighting fires for warmth, cooking meat on these open fires, sharing food amongst group members, and also teaching younger members essential skills. Life during this period was quite precarious, with high levels of infant and child mortality rates. However, those who survived childhood could expect to live to their 40s, and if you're lucky, even their 60s. The presence of multiple age groups at Jebel Irhoud demonstrate that multi-generational living occurred, and would have allowed for the transmission of knowledge and support from the community. The discovery of Homo sapien fossils at Jebel Irhoud truly disrupted the narrative of human origins. Evidence indicates that the early humans did not migrate to Jebel Irhoud in a single purposeful trek from East Africa, as we once thought, but instead they were a part of a Pan-African population that expanded its range across the entire continent during favorable climate times. These inhabitants didn't necessarily leave East Africa to settle in North Africa, but rather the greening of the continent allowed for a continuous interbreeding population to stretch from the Rift Valley to the Atlantic coast. When the desert returned, these populations became isolated, leading to distinct archaic features seen in these fossils. The Jebel Irhoud discovery is important because it pushes back against the origins of Homo sapiens, back to 300,000 years ago, and it also shows that our species evolved during a time where we thought that it just started in East Africa. The discovery also preserves very early humans with a mosaic of modern and also archaic traits, giving a rare snapshot of how modern anatomy and behavior emerged over time. It's important to remember that we might find new evidence in the future that changes our understanding of this topic. For example, if we find older fossils and human remains from Norway, we will have to conclude, based on the available evidence, that humans started in Norway. For these reasons, it's important to remember that our understandings are not set in stone and that they probably will change over time as new evidence is discovered. But that brings us to the end of this video on the first humans ever. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, consider subscribing and liking the video for more content like this.